A very good evening and welcome to G Sport Live. It's just gone 1 minute after 7 Central African time this Monday evening. It's your weekly women's sport catch up in just under 30 minutes. We know you're busy, but women's sport is so important. So we thought, let's get a catch up and find out how everyone is doing and what are the efforts that are taking place to close the visibility gap. We launched G Sport for Girls back in 2006 because, really speaking, there was no media coverage of women's sport. And through the G Sport newsroom, powered by Momentum in partnership with Telkom, we're able to increase media coverage and raise the profile of women's sport and encourage greater corporate support. So how are things in the newsroom? I can tell you it's buzzing, but don't take my word for it. Here's Celine Abrahams. She's the content lead from G Sport, and she'll tell us more about what's going on in the G Sport newsroom. We'll get back to Celine in a moment, but when we chat about women's sport, you've got to say that South African teams are doing really well on the international stage. And one sporting code that really gets me excited is water polo. And you'll remember Delane Mentor won on the G Sport stage just recently. But the way water polo is going at the moment, you've got to say that the smaller sporting codes finally starting to get some traction. So we're hoping to catch up with Celine in a moment or so. We're also on the show tonight going to be chatting to Tatenda Gondo. She's our G Sport Africa correspondent, doing some amazing work from Zimbabwe to really just close the visibility gap and ensure that we play our part all around the African continent. Let's hear now from Celine Abrahams from the G Sport newsroom.
Everyone, the G Sport newsroom has been buzzing. Firstly, I'd like to congratulate Tatenda Gondo, our G Sport Africa writer, who was our top performer for the month of April. Tatenda joined us to make sure that G Sport amplifies the coverage of women's sports across the continent. Well done, Tatenda, for your incredible work for the G Sport newsroom team. This week's leading weekend news has been incredible. Our South African Springbok Women's Sevens team have defended their Rugby Africa Cup in Tunisia and have also qualified for the Commonwealth Games in Birmingham. The Telkom Netball League has been literally firing up as the Alloys and the Fireballs have remained undefeated as the first week of the Telkom Netball League concluded in Durban today. And lastly, when you're looking at the leading weekend news, our South African under-17 water polo team remained undefeated, coming home with gold from Czech Republic from the Junior EU Nations Cup in Czech Republic. In other news making headlines on the G Sport newsroom, Banyana have been drawn in Group C of the African Women's Cup of Nations against powerhouses Nigeria. We are so looking forward to this tournament, and Desiree Ellis spoke about how she will be looking to prepare her team going into the tournament. It is going to be an incredible one. Will South Africa be able to finally get their hands on continental silverware? We will be waiting to see. And lastly, a massive congratulations to the 15 Momentum Proteas team players who have been contracted for the 2022-2023 season, which will see them also take place at the ICC Women's World Cup in 2023. Congratulations to you all for your hard work. And it is incredible to see Tasman Brits and Nonkululeko Mlabo getting their first contracts, national contracts actually, for the national team. Congratulations to you both. Your hard work has finally paid off. And this week, we are looking forward to bringing you the sponsorship edition of the G Sport newsletter. Be sure to look out for incredible pieces and learning from women in sport who are making a complete difference, just to bridge the gap in women's sport when it comes to corporate support. You can follow the link, which will be shared on our @G Sport for Girls on social media, where you can sign up for the G Sport newsletter and stay up to date with all women's sports news that we will be bringing straight to you from the newsroom team. Thank you.
Thank you, Celine Abrahams. Everyone wants to know from me where they can get that Close the Visibility Gap t-shirt, but I'll tell you who's the lucky one. Colleen McNally, she is the lucky winner of the Close the Visibility Gap competition that we held on Freedom Day, and we spoke about the strides that have been taking place in women's sport, and she spoke about leadership of South African sport and how 40% of leadership positions are now occupied by women. So congratulations to Colleen McNally. your Close the Visibility Gap hamper is on its way to you, and we really appreciate the support, not just of you, but just everyone in women's sport who sees the value of the G Sport initiative. I have to say congratulations to Celine Abrahams and the team. Today's a public holiday here in South Africa, and the newsroom has just been absolutely pumping. So once you get off this live feed, gsport.co.za is where you want to hang out for as long as possible to be inspired by great stories. And then, of course, on social media, we are at G Sport for Girls. Let's hear now from Tatenda Gondo. She's our G Sport Africa correspondent. As you heard from Celine, she was our top performer in April. And let's hear from her now about how she's feeling about contributing to G Sport.
To be announced as the top performer of the month of April. This is a team effort. We are constantly pushing each other to continue amplifying the coverage of women in sports. And I'm glad the efforts have finally paid off. And being part of the G Sport newsroom team as the African correspondent, I think the journey is quite exciting. As I always say, there are many stories of African women in sports that are yet to be unearthed, and it is our duty as G-Sport to do that. And I think if you want to know about these stories, there are several things that you have to do. The first thing is to actually subscribe to our YouTube channel, and secondly, you could actually sign up for our newsletter, which is out every Wednesday. And lastly, you can always follow us on our social networking sites to get the latest sports news and the coverage. Otherwise, it is an amazing journey, and I think as our subscribers and our readers, our viewers should expect much from us as we continue to amplify the coverage of women's sports, not just in South Africa, but in Africa. Thank you.
Fantastic from Tatenda Gondo, our G Sport Africa correspondent. She finds the stories, she ensures she brings them to our timelines, and that's hashtag G Sport Africa as we amplify the coverage on the African continent and close the gap between Africa and the rest of the world. You know, we often talk about the more we progress, the more gaps we see. And that's what we love about the work we do at G Sport, is that every time we tell a story, every time we tell a positive story, there's always another story that follows out of that. And the weekly newsletter allows us to explore that in much more detail. This week, our theme is sponsorship. And we thought ahead of the sponsorship newsletter, let's chat to a women in sports sponsorship. We see a lot of men around, don't we? But what about the women in sports sponsorship? Here's a woman who's doing her bit to change things in women in sports sponsorship. Auntie Diski from B Sports Agency. To be with you again this Monday evening. My name is Kass Naidoo. I'm the founder of G Sport. What is G Sport? It's an initiative launched back in August 2006 to raise the profile of women's sport and encourage greater corporate support. This is the big interview, and tonight I'm really excited to be speaking to this woman on screen right now. Auntie Diski, she is one of the most popular people on social media. But more than that, she's got such a kind heart and so giving in terms of her sincerity towards women's sports. So we thought ahead of the sponsorship newsletter coming out on Wednesday, we'll get her on to have a chat. Jess, it's so good to have you on. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me, Kass. Very excited to be here. I'm good, thank you. And how are you?
I'm great, thanks. I was just about to say, when we wrote about you on gsport.co.za, remember, guys, you can also follow us at G Sport for Girls. The feedback, I'm sure you also got great feedback. What did it mean to you to have G Sport tell your story?
You know what? G Sports is one initiative that I always brag about. I always talk about it. And I literally put my mentions, my notifications on for when G Sport notifications go out because I'm just like interested to always find out. And never I thought that, I would actually get an opportunity to get somebody from G Sport, contacting me and saying, hey, we're actually interested to talk to you and hear what you do. So when that happened for me, I feel like it was a milestone because I'm just like partnering up with such great initiatives surely means that I am doing something right. So absolutely highlights. Couldn't stop bragging about it. Took screenshots of it. So I was just sharing it wherever I could. I'm like, I am on G Spot, guys. Please go read the article.
Listen, you could do so much in sport, and I'm sure a lot of people come to you with so many ideas. But quite recently, you decided, let's launch the B Sports Agency, be a voice for women in sport.
Correct.
How is the agency going, and how exciting is it to be really giving your time to women in sport who need it so much?
It's very exciting, very challenging. I do not even want to, sugarcoat how difficult it's been. It's always been a dream for me, Kass, because I'm a big advocate on social media, even when I'm on TV, wherever I am, I'm always preaching about women in sports and the equality and trying to, create tangible spaces and tangible things that people can utilize in terms of, uplifting women in sports. So because it's taken so long for me to actually launch the agency, I did a lot of research because at the end of the day, you need to understand when you're an agent, you've got people's careers in your hands. You're very responsible for that. So it's not something that you can just wake up and decide to do. And you need to understand all the different sporting codes and how the regularity boards happen because you don't want to overstep. But for me, it was time. I felt it was time for me to actually physically and actively be the voice of those athletes and those women that didn't really have the access or the information. So it's been exciting. Lot of great response. I did not anticipate such a great feedback from people. And I think, we are the first of many few actually in South Africa to do it. So I think that is why people are just like finally something that, we as female athletes can, relate to or go to and that kind of thing. So it's been exciting, very challenging but exciting at the same time.
There'll be athletes watching now will be thinking, why do I need an agent? So if there's someone who's doing well in their sport but don't have agent support or agent representation, why should they get someone to represent them?
Look, you know what we do at our agency and every athlete that I speak to, I want them to understand the importance of an agent because somewhere along the line, agents just stopped doing what they needed to do. And then now there's this notion about agents being people that are just after the money for the athletes and actually forget that you actually work for the athletes, not the other way around. So I wanted to bring that back and help people actually understand the importance of being an agent. And I'm working in a market where we know there's no money. So it can never be something that it's a money thing, So for me, it's just to be the voice, to help them understand their potential and their rights. It's easy when you're an athlete in a women's sport where you don't get a lot of recognition, whether it's through salaries, whether it's through broadcasting, whether it's through commercially, where you actually don't get they don't see the value. It's easy for you to accept anything because you're just like, at least I can get this, at least I can get there. You don't see your value as an athlete. So I think it's important that, athletes understand that there is more to you than what you think there is. We can guide you, we can train you, we can help you. There's a lot of things that you as an individual can work on in order to better yourself. And I mean, you talk about brand visibility, that's something that's big. Now it's a conversation that a lot of people are talking. They don't know that. They don't understand how that can actually help them in their careers. So it's just having somebody that, sees your value and helps you have the relevant conversations with the people that, you want to work with. And also just as somebody who says no for you, because you need to get there sometimes in your career to say no because you know your value. Once you realize your worth and you've worked so hard, these women have worked so hard to create their craft, they put in the hours and the dedication. And it's so sad that you get to a point where you're just accepting anything. So an agent is basically that balance for you. And it's very important to get that voice for yourself.
What have you made of the environments of women's sport coming into work in the space and represent athletes Do you think there's been enough change? What would you like to see happen in the coming months and years in terms of the emancipation of women in sport?
I've seen some changes. I'm not gonna lie. I've seen some changes. I think the bits of pieces that we as women bring from experience, like yourself, the me's, the Busisi was all the journalists and those kind of people. I think those pieces, those conversations that I had are kind of like enforcing a bit of change. A lot of people are now being alert, and I think in this century we can see that women in sports are getting a bit of recognition. So we are not where we were 5 years ago and 10 years ago. We are moving slowly but surely. But what I would want to see is more aggressive change. Less of the conversations and more of practical things that we can hold on to and say, okay, we see this. Drastic changes. Just for an example, with regards to the football side of things, is what CAF is doing to say, if you are a team that wants to participate in CAF, you are going to have a female representing side in order for you to participate. Those are drastic measures, because it almost it forces teams to now have female teams, which I'm not understanding as to why in 2022 this has to be something that's forced upon people. It's very disappointing, because it should come naturally. But we see we are in a demographic or a country that is very slow in terms of change. We don't adapt to change a lot, and we have a culture of seeing women in sports as less, and that is just as blunt as it comes. So I'm hoping that the people that are in power, the people that have the ability to change and make those changes, are more aggressive, they are more direct, and we have a bit of a quicker turnaround in terms of all these things that these women are requesting.
What is your advice to young women who want to get into the sports sponsorship space, the sports marketing space? Because when you have a look at how women's sport is growing, brand awareness is going to be so important, and we do need champions of
Absolutely.
change. What is your advice for
Yes.
newcomers in the industry?
You know what? First of all, you cannot be lazy. Don't have a lazy spirit when it comes to this industry. Because when I tell you that you have to sit and read emails of just rejections the whole entire day, and that happens. If you don't have the thick skin to be able to accept those rejections and stand up and be like, I'm going to try again tomorrow, you're gonna need to get it from somewhere. You cannot be lazy. You have to put in the hours, you have to put in the work, you have to be able to learn, listen to the people that have paved the way, have been in the industry, do the research, and make the relevant necessary connections and network in the industry, because those people are definitely going to help you. So it's, at the end of the day, it's hard work. Stay dedicated, stay committed, always focus on the end goal. For me, Cass, with however many doors I knock at, and I'm asking for sponsorship, and I'm asking for endorsement deals and campaign deals for my athletes, and I get this a bit of resistance, because we know sometimes corporate companies are built differently, and a lot of people aren't in the space where they're really opening up the industry and associating themselves with female athletes or female women in sports generally. And every time when that happens, you get that a bit of sadness. It's like a wave of disappointment, because you're just like, what am I doing? I always think about the objective of it. I'm like, look at this, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years from now, you would have changed a lot of people's lives. So you just have to focus on that, and that is enough to fuel you to just keep going.
Absolutely. And when you have a look at just how much we do, how much we progress, we're always going to see gaps, because that's the nature of change, isn't
Absolutely.
it? When you have a look at
Yes,
your
yes.
agency, it's an all-women agency, you're playing your part to close the visibility gap from a gender perspective.
Yeah.
How important is it for us to be able to see more women in leadership positions in sport?
It's very important, because I think for some of us, we didn't have people that we looked up to. So when there's somebody that you look up to who's in the same industry that you want to actually work in, it's easier for you to start navigating around that industry. So if we have more women, first of all, given the opportunities, because obviously they have to be, those opportunities need to be made, and those women to be taking up that role, and showing us that it's it's possible. I think that goes a long way. You're motivating the little ones that are coming, and even those that don't have access. I say to my athletes, guys, what I'm going to ask you to do is to come with me to go to a Zenzela High in the townships, and I want you guys to speak to those little kids and actually tell them that it's possible. You guys grew up in the same background, same township or environmental setup, and you never thought that you could ever be where you are right now. But that's leadership, because when you stand in front of them and tell them that they can actually do it, they're going to remember you for the rest of their life, and that might be something that they need to actually go on and actually pursue the career in whatever sports that it is that they want to pursue in. So I think leadership is important, even for myself, for athletes and so on, because then it goes to show that whatever work we are putting on the ground is actually showing up there.
Finally, before I let you go, I know you have a wonderful bouquet of athletes that you represent, but what is the big dream for you in terms of the agency and the mark that you would like to leave on the sports sponsorship industry?
Great question, Kass. Currently, we are covering athletes that are in South Africa. Play for either clubs overseas or clubs in South Africa, but it's predominantly South African athletes. What I want to see for B Sports is B Sports to go on an international basis. We want to also start signing athletes from Africa, because we've got so much great talent in Africa. We've got so much great athletes. We want to get into those markets. We want to have footprint in Namibia. We want to have footprint in Cameroon, so that when we go overseas, we know exactly who we are. We are confident and that kind of thing. So I really want to, even, the sky's the limit, Kass. We can even go international, but I think that's the growth that I want to happen. It's just unfortunate in terms of the monetary value of things. It's very difficult for us to actually even sign somebody from Africa in terms of finding them a new team to play for here, because you don't want to remove an athlete from their hometown, bring them to a country where they're not going to be financially catered for. So hopefully when those structures change and the industry opens up, then we can move into Africa and say this is what we are doing and have footprint over there. So that's where we are looking at taking these sports to.
Well, keep going and keep flying the flag, because every move you make, every single move you make, is closing the visibility gap, and it's changing the game. That's why I often say to people, whatever you're doing, if you're loving it, it doesn't matter how little sleep you get, because I think you and I have discussed this before.
Absolutely.
It really is about doing it with a smile on your face. Thanks for the great advice that you've given to athletes. I know if there's anything that they will take out of this interview today, is support is so important.
Absolutely, it is. And for an athlete also, just to mention, remember with the agencies that you're not going to be an athlete forever. We know when you're in a sporting industry, life-ending, career-ending injuries do happen. And sometime, one day you want to be a coach, one day you want to work for corporate in a portfolio for sports, or one day you want to build a foundation. So it's just to equip yourself with the enough information, the tools and the resources that you would need as an athlete, even after the agency. So we're not just looking after you when you're on the field, but off the field, with your future endeavors as well.
Fantastic sports sponsorship advice from the head of sponsorship and marketing at B Sports Agency, Auntie Diski. We know you love her. We know you also love fighting with her on Twitter, because she has great opinions to share with you. Thanks so much for your time on the big interview this evening.
Thank you so much, Kass, for having me. Absolutely loved it.
That was my chat earlier with Auntie Diski from B Sports Agency. What a wonderful voice for women in sport, and some great advice, I think, if you're an athlete and you've been at a crossroads wondering whether you should get an agent or not. She's given some good advice about the pros and cons, because you really need to get delivery from your agent, so know about the right questions to ask and be able to reach out to the right people. And it's wonderful to have all women agencies in women's sport leading the way. More leadership sponsorship like that is certainly what we're looking forward to. I did say we'd wrap up in 30 minutes, and I've kept my promise. That's where we're going to wrap things up, this G Sport Live. On this Monday, the 2nd of May, it's a public holiday, back to work, back to school tomorrow if you're in South Africa. And of course, if you're a women's sport supporter, women's sport follower, at G Sport for Girls across social media, subscribe to this YouTube channel, and of course gsport.co.za. It absolutely buzzes 24/7 as we close the visibility gap in partnership with Momentum and Telkom. Sign up for the G Sport newsletter. It's about sponsorship, always important. Money talks every language, and we look forward to your company again next time here on G Sport Live. From all of us in the G Sport newsroom, a very good evening.